First of all, thank you to the administration for supporting this event that should have been on this sheet. And I would like to thank everyone for showing up today, both our poets and those of you who have been bribed to show up with grades and food. The people who set up this event were kind enough to ask me to provide a brief background on the purpose of poetry, which is a massive philosophical question. Oh, I'm Jason Malcolm. Sorry. I'm the chair of English and Education. Thank you, Angela. It didn't tell me to do that, so I didn't do it. The purpose of poetry, I guess the obvious is that it's National Poetry Month. That's the simple walk-off answer. You can do the E-Notes answer, which it's to inform, entertain, and to laugh. But my answer is more complicated. The older I get, the more I've realized that so much of life is completely ordinary. You wake up, you look at spreadsheets, you schedule things, you get yelled at, and then you go right back to bed. But every once in a while, I get to teach poetry. My students love it considerably less than I do, I'm afraid. But to me, poetry washes off the grime and the grit and the nonsense of everyday, ordinary life and language. Life may be ordinary, but part of it is absolutely extraordinary, and you can share that experience with other people, all the good and the bad, with poetry. And we have some fabulous poets here today. And our leadoff hitter, which is not her technical term, is Andrea Vocab Sanderson. She is a skilled poet. She is a community leader in San Antonio, Texas. She teaches poetry workshops, she mentors other artists, and she provides platforms for them to showcase their talents. Sanderson's debut book and album are available for streaming. She's set up over there kindly, and her poetry has been published in various publications. She has received numerous awards, including Performer of the Year and Influencer of the Year from Project Forward, Dream Voice and the Dream Week Commission, and the 2019 People's Choice Award from Luminaria Artist Foundation. Please welcome Vocab.
You know, when you're on a microphone, you don't think about the fact that like everyone can hear you, and so you can't. If you start having a personal conversation, then the person in the audience is like, "Don't do that." Let's get started. I feel so amazing. I feel so amazing. I feel so amazing. I'm simply me, so amazing. I feel so amazing. You are so amazing, simply me. Woke up to an epiphany of who I've become. The embodiment of my experiences coupled with temperance emanated into this song. I know right where I belong. Tucked underneath my skin is a perfect blend of grace, wisdom, and certainty. My affirmations match my expectations. My whole body is an anthem. My heartbeat keeps a drum, and it feels so amazing. I feel so amazing. You are so amazing. Simply me, so amazing. We are so amazing, so amazing. Simply me. Feeling lush virtuosity, and it's amazing. The blend of fabric woven meticulously, I see the good in me. Natural beauty internally, it flows through fluidly like fine linens of self-love. Esteeming my heart in high regards, looking above fault lines. No more earthquakes of criticism and critique. I won't weigh myself against others because I'm unique and we are amazing. So there's that piece. I felt like, thank you. I felt like you might need that reminder this morning, like, I'm dope. I am dope. I'm great. Some of y'all don't say dope. Some of y'all are like, what? Like weed? No. Like awesome. Like you're an awesome person. And we have to speak kindly to ourselves. We've come out of one of the roughest seasons in human history, and the after effects, we're seeing it every day. Every time we turn on the news, we see the after effects of what, you know, a whole pandemic can do to a society. And we have to walk in self-love. And if you start that self-love journey, then you can walk in the journey of loving others and walking in love, because we were created in love. All right. So my dad loves jazz. He likes more contemporary and modern jazz, and you know, some people, they make fun of Kenny G. It's funny, but I think it's the curls. I think it's more so the curls than anything else, but it's like elevator music, right? He likes some of that stuff. But the classics are always good, especially the jazz standards, and I have to admit that I wasn't a complete adult before I got into Ella Fitzgerald, but when I found her, I was like, never letting this go. And sometimes it's a sunny, pretty day, but I think she works best on rainy days. That's just my opinion. So I'm going to do a piece called Queen of Swing. It's in my book, which is over there. Maybe I'll talk to y'all a little bit. I think I'm supposed to do it like a combination of poetry and talking. So I'll find some places to talk, but I'm going to hit you with some poetry up front and do some more talking at the end. And if you hadn't figured out by now, I'm a singing, rapping poet. So you're going to get all of that this morning. You're like, I didn't sign up for that. It's too bad. It's too bad. Look how she's doing her thing. She is the queen, queen of swing, yeah. Look how she's doing her thing. She is the queen, queen of swing. She's got reptilian hip rhythm, and she lets the song slither from underneath her hissing skin. She is a brown and dewy body bathed in the balayage of stage lighting. She is pyrite igniting, hitting the rafters with the purest form of beauty she can possibly muster from her inflated lungs, and we will all succumb to her snake charms. Arms extended, she is hugging the reverie of the horn section, her form physically conducting a scatting soul session. She's such a sweet little dancer, a tisket, a tasket, an old yellow basket burrows its way into the silver realistic microphone, her tone breaking free from expectations, her tone breaking the color barriers of Jim Crow, her voice colliding with stereotypes and changing perceptions, all in one night, all in one nightclub, stomping at the Savoy. Her crown in its place, the queen of swing, graces us all, belle of the ballroom. A blooming foliage of feathers adorning her tightly curled follicles, the molecules of her radiance showering the Philharmonic as jazz chords trumpet up the balcony. No one is seated. No one is standing. Everyone is levitating because she is elevating the art form. Get it? Elevating? Non-conforming mystic that she is, hypnotist is what she is. And whether it's elegant Ella meets Ellington to the duets with the dizziness of Gillespie, she was so impressing because of the prowess of the pleasure-filled chords making their exodus from her parted Red Sea lips. She be that female pharaoh tightening her grip, enslaving us all with her music. And we are whipped, we are stunned into silence. And whether she is descending a strand of Chick's percussionist web or ascending a riff from Calloway's big band, she commands the cadence, she commands the vibration, the temperament, and the textures. Oh God, her textures. Every gesture tickles the chords like a court jester. Bountiful as laughter from her throat, she can make a song sound somber. She can make a song sound giddy. But the song don't mean a thing if it ain't got that swing. Do-up, 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 do-up. Her body, so fat with talent that the whole room protrudes. And we are so enraptured by her volcanic ashes that we could all become. We are so enraptured by her volcanic eruptions that we could all become ash-covered statues, completely classic, persuasively pushing us over with her seductive blues. And we are all exhilarated by you, Ella Fitzgerald, and so I am paying you this tribute, Queen of Swing. Thank you. So in 2019, when I won the People's Choice Awards for the Artist Foundation that became the Luminaria Artist Foundation, I decided to do, my proposal was to do a companion project. So the album came first, and it was called She Tastes Like Music, and then the book came after, and it was called She Lives in Music, and they would have been released at the same time, but you know, things get hairy. You try to get all things out at the same time, but the book came like 2 to 3 months after the album, and every song that is on the album is also in written form in the book. And the book is, every piece in the book is either about a musician, about a song, inspired by music, or holds a musical form in the structure that I wrote it in. And so I pay a lot of tribute to a lot of musicians in that book. And I will say this, you know, as writers, we have to write about the things that inspire us. We have to sometimes do a deep dive. My favorite poems to write are tribute pieces, and I don't know what you all like to write, but I feel like when we're writing for someone else or about someone else, our passion really comes to play, because honoring others is such a great way to celebrate and their life and everything that they've contributed to your life and the inspiration that they brought into your life. So please always look for those moments to celebrate others, and when you write about them and you share it, it's a way for not only for you to connect to that individual, but also for your listener, your reader, your audience to connect to that person. And I feel like we understand ourselves better when we explore other people, their personalities, their contributions to the world, and things of that nature. All right, time for another poem. So I'm going to, yeah, let's do Ask the River. Let's do Ask the River. I'll do that. I'm going to be doing it from memory, so it may appear different in the book. Put it like that. Yes, remix. All right, after this piece, I promise you I'll stop singing, but I'm going to sing for this piece, and then I'll chill out on that and just read you a long poem. So this piece is about reflection, and I find that a lot of my pieces that I wrote in the past few years have been deeply about reflecting on, because we're always asking ourselves questions, we're always asking God, or, you know, consorting with the humans that are in our lives that we love or that we think are wise, trying to find out answers to things or just get their perspective. I mean, we watch vlogs and read blogs and listen to influencers and watch news, you know, those women that sit on the panel and argue with each other and then have to issue apologies 3 weeks later or something. They're always arguing. I feel like on The View or one of those shows, they're always arguing with each other. I'm like, okay, yeah, just listen, because everyone fancies themselves to know so much sometimes. And, you know, we have to turn inwards a lot of times and find that so many of the answers that we need, they are definitely sitting in our hearts, and we know what we should be doing. We just have disconnected from God speaking into our hearts and telling us and listening to the intuition inside of us, because that voice has always been there trying to direct us and give us some answers. And sometimes we just need to go out in nature and chill out. Growing up in San Antonio, we have this beautiful idea of how this whole community, this whole city was built around the river and missions. And so there's so much spirituality that comes into play when we start thinking of the water, how it can cleanse us, how it can immerse the sins of our life and the things that we want to seek forgiveness or rid ourselves of shame and guilt for going through. All right, I've rambled enough. spoke to the river. I had so much to say, and I talked to the river. She answered me in waves. I once asked the water, do you recognize me, my whole body a river, frame that flows and ripples deep within, coursing to currents of beauty, liquid hearth, gurgling with inseparable droplets and always inviting, my entire habitat encompassing, salted or fresh, full and rushing with life, never dammed or receding, and certainly never stagnant. My movement, a fluid feminine rhythm, trickling or hasty through valleys and mountains, I wind. I am no pond, yet at times I resemble an ocean. I once asked the water, do you recognize me? I sat still, waited for an answer. All I saw was my reflection in the flux and waves, in the flux and waves. So I spoke to the river. I spoke. I had so much to say, and I talked to the river. She answered me in waves, in waves. Your voice will answer you. God's voice will answer you. We got to ask the right questions. And we got to sit and wait for an answer sometimes. We were busy people. The last week of my term as Poet Laureate of this city, I had 8 speaking engagements planned for like a 4-day period, 3-day period, and I was like, I'm about to do it. I'm going out in a blaze of glory, and come Saturday, April 1st, I will be ready to hand over my Poet Laureateship to Naftali De Leon, our 6th Poet Laureate of San Antonio. I was so, gearing up to do all that, and then COVID-19 sat me down, and I got sick. And I had to cancel all my speaking engagements, and I just had to lay in my bed and be like, wah. And it was really hard. And I was like, dang, the same way I came into this Poet Laureate thing, sitting at home trying to figure things out, is the same way I'm gonna have to end it in reflection, thinking. And I was like, okay, God, humble pie. I'll eat this. And I will spend the end of this, really thinking about what I can accomplish moving forward in the future and being thankful for what I've had the opportunity to do over the past 3 years. And so sometimes it really takes a lot of maturity to sit down and do that work of reflecting and then figuring out how to proceed forward. But we can't stop moving. Even in times of stillness, we can't stop moving because we have to let our mind be at peace. And at peace, we're working through some stuff. We really are working through things. And then when you do that, here we go. I'm gearing up for the segue. Get ready. Here comes the segue. We have to give ourselves permission to play again. We have to allow ourselves to be imaginative and explore and allow ourselves to dream as big as we want. And some of us come from marginalized communities and different backgrounds where we weren't having access to resources. We weren't told you can be anything you want to be. You can go and dream and have the privilege of attaining the things that you want in life. And all of you are obviously here because you believe that you can attain something. You're here pursuing education. children or teaching young people because you've walked a certain path and you feel that you have wisdom and knowledge and scholarship to pass on to them. And so even in these spaces, sometimes we have to remind ourselves to play because we get so serious and it gets so stuffy. And we have to be like children again. So I was commissioned by Centro San Antonio, or the same people who allowed me to do the elevated melanin mural a couple of years ago. So August of 2020, I was able to paint a poem around Travis Park, and it was in temporary paint. Other cities were painting Black Lives Matter on the ground. They decided to allow me to pen a poem, and so I penned an entire piece, but 13 words of that poem were painted around Travis Park. Anyways, Central San Antonio does a great job with their Art Everywhere project. They have so many beautiful installations all over the city of San Antonio. Andy Rodriguez approached me again after attending an event that I had done for the Department of Arts and Cultures, and she said, hey, I want to do another piece, but this time I would like for you to collaborate with Barbara Felix, who is an amazing visual artist here in San Antonio. I encourage you, look up Barbara Felix, enjoy her works, just get into it. She has a whole installation called The Glorious Way She Moves, celebrating women and our movement and our bodies and our forms. And so she was like, Andy was like, hey, get with Barbara and let's come up with an idea, and I already knew what I wanted to do. This idea of being an adult at play. Y'all remember a few years ago when adult coloring books were all the rage? Like, as if people, I was like, well, yeah, you should have never stopped coloring to begin with. And then you were paying $20 for a mandala, you know, like ornate coloring book with beautiful shapes and designs and stuff. I'm like, you better go to the dollar store and get that Barney coloring book or that Paw Patrol and get on it. But, you know, people wanted to feel refined and wanted something beautiful, so they spent all this money on these Amazon, you know, adult coloring books and stuff. But it was just like, yeah, that's a simple solution that will help rid you of a lot of stress. And I feel that we need to play again. So the mural is called Permission to Play, and I wrote a poem that he named the song "Are We There Yet?" because when you turn a poem into a song, there has to be a hook in there somewhere. So the hook that I created, I said "Are we there yet?" a couple times throughout the piece, and so he was like, "Yeah, we're naming the song "Are We There Yet?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna talk to my producer." But I like that. I like "Are We There Yet?" because if you're a kid and you're about to go somewhere that you really want to go, in the back seat, you're so impatient. You're not enjoying the process and the journey of getting to that place. You're just asking your parents, "Are we there yet?" And so this piece is called Permission to Play, and I feel like my introduction might have been longer than the actual piece, but you know, here we go. Creativity. Let's try this one. Let's go over there. Let's try this. All right. Creativity kisses my footsteps like kismet, and I want permission to play. Are we there yet? I have no regrets. I just want to be free, living my fantasy. And if you ask me, are we there yet? We trace the melodies of memories. The echoed song of my inner child bounces on my trampoline thoughts, pleading for permission to play, make believe, and suddenly I'm a kid again, bubbling up with joy-filled glimpses from my past, jumping jack flashback, recalling the last time I was free to play. I lean into the familiar sway of Fluye. This freedom feels electric, energetic and kinetic, surrounded in a force field of frolic, my body rediscovering pockets of a groove. I tune into connectivity with my entire vessel, receiving the warm fuzzies of your invitation to friendship. Feeling cozy as sock puppet sleeves and ease buzzes around me. And I am seeing life differently as we dance in the lemon rays of a playground, twirling around. It's glorious, never laborious, the way that we move. The roots of maturity remain because we never stopped learning, even in interludes of recreation. Our muscles adapted by strengthening our sweat-glazed limbs, gaining whimsical wisdom with every experience. Arms and legs radiate ripe with an orange glow. Body language flows in acrobatic figuration, interpretation jigsaws, fittingly in translation. We intertwine finger strings of imagination with adventures. The exploration is sacred and safe. We change costumes, getting into our giddy feelings. We're on a mood swing now, pulling back with anticipation of release into limitless altitudes. I attempt to keep time with you as the momentum shifts higher, absence of trepidation. Like hide and go seek, we count down with no peeking towards a latitudinal liftoff, setting our coordinates to cloud 9. I'm aware that there is no air pressure here, no tug of war with fear. We've pushed bullying shadows off our monkey bar mindsets. You and I are jet set for the stars. No one is putting us on standby. We have clearance to blast off. Glittering expressions flying in every direction as we race with iridescent rainbows. Our smiles become crescent ivories. I mimic your textures as our toes caress the atmosphere, giving us passage to an incandescent odyssey. Laughter becomes a launch pad for euphoria. Laughter leaps frogs from my lungs. We forge a path to an open space where fun is commonplace. We savor the sticky taste of timelessness, pulp pressed from the mandarin mouth of our adolescence. Our bellies are bulging full with citrus squeeze epiphanies that our hearts have always understood. The resource of recess restores our youthfulness, and playing is always good for the soul. Okay, I'll do one more piece, and it's not that long. You know, it's a little, well, okay, it's kind of longish. I won't lie to you. So I was asked to write a poem about women telling their stories, sharing our stories, and I thought about womanhood and what it meant to me, and I'm always about the extended metaphor, obviously, for my last poem. That's pretty obvious. And so this piece, I was like, what metaphors would I liken for womanhood? And I came with this idea of stretching. So much of womanhood involves stretching of our hair, of our bodies, a lot of times in our bodies. I mean, to have a child, to grow, to change, to mature, everything starts getting rounder and changing shapes, and then it starts drooping, and then we're getting like, oh God, I gotta do something, like a Botox, or I don't know, you know, but there's so much stretching involved in womanhood, and so I thought of this in depth, and this is the piece I came up with. I won't talk anymore. The women sewed whispers, weave them into threads of hair and textiles, stretching wefts and patterns like latch hook keepsakes, the tapestries of a journey that cannot be forgotten, chronicles and braided follicles and the turning of glossy yarn through looms, spooling wisdom from wombs and passing it along like Rose Van Dyne, binding our details into the fabric. Our greatest surviving mechanism rests in the flaxen fibers of the mind and moves throughout the lips. It pulls on our fingertips, pleading for a rescuing adaptation. The women howled. Wildfire dancing in their glinting irises, spreading pyres of amber and indigos. The parable surrounded their toes, heating their feet like a cauldron, and the flickering warmth grew until all they knew was engulfed and raging. The vivid images were singed in their psyches. Coughing out smoke, they spoke tales that struck against flint, igniting their daughters, descendants that bartered the flame of lineage for passage into new worlds. This feminine diaspora swept across every continent, reclaiming in its path. The women chanted truths, rallied on asphalt, spanning city blocks as they breached barricades. They poked holes in the system with petitions and never piped down in the face of threats. The women travailed in the courts, in the halls, institutions, and called for justice on the scales, awaited balance on each side to prevail when intolerant suits and robes tried to strobe light their eyes, blind. The women aligned outside of the margins and advocated their way into the delegations, into the committees and the congregations, never hushing for the male colleagues or husbands, and if they sat silent, they were biding time for the opportune moment and climbed on the precipice of seats, fishing the sequence of events from their bosoms. They hoisted up their cleavage with the particulars and nursing their babes with the knowledge. The women confided in each other, motherhood to sisterhood, a cape brimming with elasticity, drawn over shoulders and draping to the ground. The women extended the words one to another in anecdotes, fables, legends, and eyewitness accounts. Their candor was pearlescent and paramount. They recounted memories in brevity or elaborately as needed. They heeded the discernment of spirit, raking over portions of emotions and insight as an offering, a blood-soaked sacrifice, a generous alm. Every story is a prying of a manuscript ripped by their delicate strength, a virtue tugged from their garment hem, a palm clench stretching and bending that never, ever needs amending. For the stories aren't broken. They are wholly, wholly from the hemorrhaging heart. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. Thank you to the faculty that arranged this event. I appreciate you. Goodbye.
That was fantastic. Thank you so much. Up next, we're going to have several members of our faculty and then student readings. Up next is Robert Cavazos. He's a poet who teaches at Northeast Lakeview College and at Texas A&M University San Antonio. He graduated from the University of Incarnate Word and NC State University's MFA program. He served with Teach for America and Gemini Inc., published poems in Quirk and Boundless, and won San Antonio's 2022 Ekphrastic Poetry Contest. I was very worried about pronouncing that word. Please welcome Robert Cavazos.
Okay. Hello, everyone. How are y'all doing? Good. I feel like I would love to start my morning the same way that we did today with hearing the illustrious Vocab Sanderson. Can we give her another round of applause? I grew up here in San Antonio, and for the past probably decade or so, I've had the pleasure of seeing Vocab at various events, hearing her great music and poetry. So really encourage y'all to pick up a copy of her CD and her book. My wife and I listen to her music all the time in the car. It's great. I think you'll like it. Thanks for all my students that are here today, for the faculty that invited me to read, and really happy to be here this morning with y'all. This first poem is a piece that actually came out of a lesson I was giving on the poetic form of the sestina, which involves a lot of repetition in 6 subsequent stanzas. And so this sestina is actually only half of a sestina for a certain reason. Essentially, the recent school shootings that we've been seeing about in the news were on my mind a lot recently. My brother and I also started attending some personal self-defense courses, and just kind of those two things colliding at once is where this poem came from. Clipped sestina for felled children. Felled by guns, by drugs, by hate, by apathy. The other day I read a study of America's decreased average lifespan, of the many young lives lost to time, the place between legislative sessions and YouTube conspiracy, an expiration date not of their choosing. Last month, my brother and I met, choosing a free Krav Maga lesson to avoid apathy. We battled blue rubber guns, conspiracy pointed at the chest. Rattling like America's breath, I couldn't figure out the steps between disarming my assailant's gun. After many attempts, I could never step out of danger. Many minutes I've spent checking locked doors, choosing caution after Nashville, after Uvalde, perplexed between the fear of my colleagues and my family's silent apathy, shuddering to think of felled children in America's school halls, felled in the absence of conspiracy. Now, I mentioned one of my brothers. I'm very close with both of my younger brothers. And this brother in particular recently was diagnosed as bipolar and has struggled with some pretty tough manic episodes the last couple of years. At the same time, he's also very resilient and has been able to bounce back from all of those episodes. And him and my other brother are some of the smartest people I know. So this is a little bit more about my brother. Hands. His strong hands shake from the Depakote. My tall little brother wrestles his mind. Another episode, another treatment center. In the fall, we had reached for hope. But the winter cold, faith having flown, took a bite. On dark nights of adult concern, we returned to ritual in search of light. The first warm night of a strange season, we light a candle on the Hanukkah, sing 3 blessings for a reminder of time, which, once assured, feels everlasting. No persecution, even those spanning generations, last forever. And that was a poem I wrote around the season of Hanukkah last fall. I'm not like a fully practicing Jew, but my mother has Jewish ancestry. I've taken a deep interest in my Jewish ancestry the past couple of years, especially noticing the rise in anti-Semitism in the country too. And so this is a poem that came out of some of the thoughts I've been having about my roots and how that connects to how people perceive Judaism in the country. And the title of the poem refers to a German word for a Jewish hat that was required by Jews to wear in medieval Europe. Judenhut. My wife and I marathon our watch list of camp and horror on slow, cool days before Halloween. We watch Hocus Pocus and The Witch, and also Hulu's The Patient. One windy October night, talking with colleagues after a reading, we talk about baseball, parenting, and also Kanye West. It's everywhere these days, in the air and on our thoughts, on our tongues, a festering, boiling pot of conspiratorial content. Throughout time, too, the big warty nose, the tall pointy hat, of comical witchy lore and Jewish ghettos, the nude, child-eating spinsters of sinister New England forest gobbling up children, with sharp teeth and dark shadows, a danger lurking in the waiting, a pestilence to be exterminated. We are called a disease. We infiltrate the West each new century, a disease without kind, a jump scare missing resolution. So it's no wonder the serial killer on The Patient feels no conflict kidnapping his Jewish therapist, played by Steve Carell. The patient chains the therapist to a basement bed, strangles a rude client, and makes his therapist dig a hole. The therapist disassociates, imagines that he's banging on a gas chamber door, trapped with ghosts whose eyes are empty. I feel like those first 3 poems, I was talking with my wife about this earlier this morning, the tone of those poems are not emblematic of my usual temperament. I like to be pretty optimistic. So this last poem is a little bit lighter. This is a sonnet I wrote, again, during a lesson that I was teaching on the sonnet form. Juan, you might remember this. We were going over sonnets in class, and I came up with this poem afterwards about my wife. We've been married for 4 years. Clay sonnet. You of the finest material sculpted, with browns and reds glistening, hue of earth and air, turbulent sky, calm trickle of water. Fashioned in the crucible of trauma, you choose hope. Your art defies description. It builds itself each brisk winter, visions unglimpsed through the lives of others' context. In light of your shadow, I stand transfixed. What form as we age will you now assume? And who will testify the radiance of you? Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Robert. Up next is Michael Chapman, who is a full-time professor of English at NLC, and whilst, this is Froofy, obtaining his master's degree at UTSA, he also earned a certificate in creative writing. Michael Chapman.
Hello. All right. It's hot mic. So, I'm a little disappointed that we don't have a lot of creative writing programs here at Northeast Lakeview College. So, like, when thinking about what I wanted to read today, I went back to the vault and pulled stuff out from undergrad and grad school. I tried to find stuff from undergrad, but I really didn't write that much poetry. I was primarily short fiction at that time. So the first poem is the only undergrad poem, and then the rest are all from grad school. But this is called Keep It Simple, Stupid. I'm gonna slap an old school beat for my buddies in the back, make my homie say, damn, yo, I want my money back. Yeah, I rhyme back with back, I ain't got no rapping game. I'm just a white bread boy, Mike to the C's my name. I'm kicking a simple jam, just me without a guitar. I'm not selling triple platinum, I'm not going too far. I'm the kid with the Zeppelin shirt, busting V-Ice at the bar down the street on karaoke night. I got a crew that backs me up, you roll to us, you get, or we'll politely ask you to leave, and if you don't, then we'll shut up. This is a 50-second song. You're already thinking it's too long, but it's too late to turn back. Now you realize you were wrong. I'm thinking about a new philosophy to help run my life. For every choice I have, I'll just do what tastes right. Okay, I stole that one from Wendy's, but they ain't gonna mind as long as I keep Biggie sizing for an extra triple dime. All the homies wanna be me, but they can't see me for what I am, so they can all, I think I'll end this rhyme with a quote from Dante. There was this Big B. Anyway, thank you. So yeah, undergrad. This next one, it's a poem about my wife. A nickname I had for her is River Peach. And during this time with my poetry, I was always trying to experiment with word choice and syllables. I do a lot of syllabic poetry and line length, playing with line length. This is River Peach. I climbed a tree in some far-out forest, way out down south, stuck up, so I hung out to dry. My feet so wet with sweat while I waited to see if the descent from such heights would be presented to me. Then looking off, I saw another tree, so tall, ripe, Then looking off, I saw another tree, so tall, so ripe, soothing shade, warm sunlight, and I thought, that is the place to be when stuck in a tree. And peaches grow from it. Motive enough to try a jump. A jump from this height might prove suicide. Body rearranged, heart rearranged, massively, passionately, I'd be a fool to try it. And yet, for those peaches, I would be a fool not to try. So sweet and soft, they would ease my hunger, the juice sweet, my mouth sweet, my soul complete. That's it, I'll jump. Feet planted, I crouched, engaged, preparing to engage a leap from the canopy. With a spring, I flew through the air, through the leaves, to the desire to the peaches that I have missed, and I did miss. The trunk proved just too far. My hands grabbed, no hold was found. Fruit gave way and fell with me. Tumbling, turning, head over, heels under, dizzily down and down through the tree blur. My eyes blind to the world around me. My heart's time beat triple. My senses left me. I saw a river, saving sliver of sea below me. Pure relief washed over as the mighty water saved. The water was cool, swim, kick, breathe the air. Now free from the water, free from the tree. But what of the sweet, what of the fruit, what of the peach that fell with me through the trees? And then I saw her, floating close to me. I reached out and pulled in my beautiful prize, then took a bite, now complete, now safe, now whole, my river peach. Thank you. So this next one is another play in syllables. This is called Blitzkrieg at the Year's End. Trick or treat. Pillowcase has turned the goodie sack and the block kids into door-to-door beggars. Clean the rotting pumpkin off the porch, stuff this year's disguise into an attic box, then it's time to eat. The turkey's trimmed and all the kin are gathered. Overindulgence is the mark of true thankfulness. Pack another turkey sandwich for lunch at work, return home to mob stores, to turkey stew for dinner, and some winter cheer. Chap-lipped neighbors greet happy holidays when they really mean Hanukkah. At work, presents are swapped and coworkers can only whisper Merry Christmas. Exchange the unwanted items for gifts not received from the wish list. Notice that those early to put up are also those early to take down in time for the new year. Wine is replaced with sparkling grape juice so the kids can toast along when the ball drops. Friends gather, discuss their resolutions, which are exactly the same as everyone else's. Look into the age eyes of the mirror and wonder where the moment's wasted to realize that more time should have been taken to enjoy the things as they happened, just like last year. I'm going way too fast. All right. But here's another fast one. So I didn't have to, but I always like process poems, like where somebody's describing a process, kind of like a process paper. But this is called Mix and Dranks. It's a harken back to when we would make Kool-Aid at my grandma's house, but she didn't have Kool-Aid. She bought generic Flavor-Aid. So, not as good, you say? All right, fine. So Mix and Drinks. Dive into the kitchen drawer, grab a Flavor-Aid packet, rip the tippy top off, throw it in the wastebasket, pour the powder in the pitcher, scoop the sugars. Make it 3, because you know that grape's better when it's extra super sweet. Then we fill in the water, mix it up, wooden spoon, save the packet for the points you'll redeem real soon. Ice cubes to the glass, pitcher makes a pour, flavor blast a swig, lick it for some more. Damn, that shit was great! All right. Hopefully you got the reference. All right. Last poem for today, it's the Watermelon Thump. So a little bit of backstory on this one. My best friend since 6th grade is a guy named Matthew Ferguson. So this is a poem about me and him back in 1996. So here we go. 1996 is where our tale makes entrance. Me and Matt F. were just teenage nitwits. We was cruising around Saytown, listening to some Weird Al, trying to collect the toys you get in the kids' meal. Then all of a sudden, see a banner spread across the road. It had words. Here's how they go. Thump, thump, thump. It's the watermelon. Thump, 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 thump. Well, we had never in our dealing heard of something so appealing. Thump, watermelon, festival, we hit the ceiling. We told my mom, let's go, but she said no. We asked if we could go, but she said no. We asked my mom, please, but she still said no. Nothing could be done, let me tell you, son. We was only 13 and no license. Mom behind the wheel, we got to deal with her deal. Go where she goes, it surely stinks for real. But we still could dream about what could have been. Thump with the melon joys unforeseen that go thump, 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 thump. It's the watermelon. Thump, 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 thump. Now we imagine what it's like. They got some folks with no clues, some girls with no shoes, watermelon juice dripping off of their... People jumping in watermelon, taking pictures of the watermelon, people taking pictures of the babies by the watermelon. They got watermelon hats, watermelon hat racks, people dancing around on a watermelon shake mat. Thump, 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 thump. It's the watermelon. Thump, 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 thump. Thank y'all. Thank you for indulging me.
Our next faculty member to read is Angela Hager. She's a professor of English at NLC. I don't know why I'm looking at the sheet. She's originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and studied English at UTSA with an emphasis on creative writing. And she is both a Blues and a Cardinals superfan. Go ahead.
All right. Don't freak out. I won't. Thank you. I don't know why standing up in front of something like a group like this makes my hand shake. Maybe it's because you're looking at me, so it's so different than teaching class. So I guess I'll just take a second to say this sort of feels like a cosmic event. Dr. Davenport and I went to undergrad together. Mr. Chapman and I did some graduate classes together. I also am going back into the vault to read some of my poetry from undergrad and graduate school. And then I'm going to try to finish by reading a poem by my professor, mentor, and friend who just passed away last month, Dr. Wendy Barker. So hopefully I'll make it through that. I'm going to start out with one of my own poems from undergrad, and it is called Room 115, Bed A. Hers was the face of a woman who had loved the same man for over 50 years and had lost him that day. He had looked up vacantly from the hospital bed. Tears coursed down the grooves of his brown skin, over his high cheekbones, and to the tips of his ears. He had said that he heard music. His eyes were open, the tears still coming. He kept saying that he could hear the most beautiful music. But she only heard the long, still, lonely beep. The tears that came from his eyes were still alive, rolling off his skin, falling, wetting the sheets. New tears stopped coming, and hers began. When I saw her, the drops had ceased. They had begun to well up behind her eyes, to dam up behind them. The tears began to clot and made her blue eyes turn gray, the way hair can turn white from a great shock. Okay, so that was like the most intense of the poems. That was about my grandma and papa. My next poem, I think, could best be prefaced by, it's about the first year of marriage. So if you're married, you are gonna get this. If you're not, you have something to look forward to. This poem is called, I'd Like to Think. My kitchen counter is a place unacquainted with germs from the men's room floor or the sticky carpet at the bowling alley's snack bar. And yes, even he concedes he would never, no way, bend down and lick the lane, even if they did just wax it. Why then, I inquire, would he presume to place bowling shoes sole down on the kitchen counter? And only then, when I remind him that I assume the counter is disinfected when I cook his dinner, does he shudder, thinking of bathroom germs infecting his next meal. And this time, my cleaning lesson isn't absurd. I'm past the first year of marriage now, so things are better. No bowling shoes on the counter. The next poem, I don't even have to tell you what it's about, you're gonna get it. It's called Upon Baking a Cake with My Mother. I fold ingredients into the batter while she sprinkles the conversation with the wide range of my shortcomings. Some are related to the cake making at hand, baking soda heaping in its spoon instead of being level. And it's just a wonder I don't get eggshells in the batter. Other imperfections are cataloged. These personal missteps likely passed from my dad's side of the family. Hair that is too thin on the ends, feet with dirty bottoms ruining the freshly mopped floor, pants that sag. Meanwhile, the mixer, removed too quickly, splashes the counter, and the oven has still not reached 350 degrees, mystifyingly, due to restraint I know is credited to my dad's genes. The cake is completed, and I survive mother's baking. See, you have mothers. I knew you'd get that one. All right, so here's where my hands really start shaking. I'm going to try to read this poem by, as I said, my professor and friend, Dr. Wendy Barker. She passed away last month. This book of poetry she published is titled One Blackbird at a Time, and it's a collection of poems about her teaching. And Michael and I were both poets in her poetry workshops, and I think Laura also, perhaps, and Jason too. All of us, she had a hand in getting us where we are. So shout out to Wendy Barker. I am going to read a poem from her that I feel deep within my soul. And it is called, I Hate Telling People I Teach English. Like last August, after they'd finished my bone scan, this combed-over mid-60s guy starts chatting about the novel he's written in his head. He only needs someone like me to work it up. He never liked punctuation, parts of speech, all that junk from junior high, and I couldn't get my printout fast enough to take to my GP, who likes to quote from his inspirational speeches to luncheon clubs. He's determined to collect them in a book. Though he'd need a good editor, do I know any? And meanwhile, I've been waiting 57 minutes for help with recharging my sluggish thyroid. And I haven't met any doctors who like giving free advice about your daughter's milk allergy or your friend's migraines or the thumb you slammed in the stairwell door, splitting it open so badly your students interrupted your lecture on pronoun agreement to note you were dripping blood from your hand, and wow, what happened? But it's mostly at parties. I hate admitting I teach English. I've never been quick enough to fudge the way a Methodist minister friend he's in support services so he doesn't get called to lead grace. I guess I could dub myself a communications facilitator, but since I'm in the business of trying to obviate obfuscation, I own up. Though I dread what I know is coming. Oh, they say, I hated English. All that grammar. You won't like the way I talk. You'll be correcting me, and suddenly they need another Bud or Merlot, or they've got to check out the meatballs or guacamole over on the table, and I'm left facing blank space. No one who can even think about correcting my dangling participles. I lost my place. Okay, my dangling participles. Once, when the computer guy was at the house, bent over my laptop, trying to get us back online, he asked what it was I wrote. And when I told him poetry, said, fluffy stuff. And I wasn't sure whether he was kidding or not, but I figured at least it was better than his saying he hated poetry or that he had a manuscript right outside in his Camry, and could I take a look? No hurry, but he knew it would sell. Could I tell him how to get an agent for his novel about his uncle moving to Arizona and running a thriving ostrich farm until the day hot air balloons took off half a mile away and stampeded the birds till all he was left with were feathers and bloody, tangled necks on fence posts. The dream of making $2 million from those birds, a haunting sentence fragment. But then, I think, I would never have wanted to miss the time a dentist, tapping my molars, asked if I'd like to hear him recite Chaucer's prologue to the Canterbury Tales in Middle English, which he did, while I lay back in his chair, open-mouthed, pierced to the root. Thank you.
Last faculty poet is Dr. Laura Davenport, who holds a PhD in creative writing from the University of Denver. Her first novel, An Occasional History, good title, was among Entropy Magazine's best fiction books of 2017. Come on up.
Okay, so like Angie, well, we're different heights. I am also going to read, I'm going to start though with a piece from another one of our really important, but I can do this without crying. Catherine Casper, who maybe Michael knew also, was one of my first writing professors, and Angie also, and it would be an understatement to say that I wouldn't be here if it weren't for her. One time she took me to Austin to the Harry Ransom Center to go see the world's first photograph, and she has a poem called The World's First Photograph, and so maybe it'll remind me of happy times. A blur, really, and angles on the left, perhaps a building, a tower with 2 windows and tall walls, a gray building on the right, then an abandoned building, crumbly, cloudy, or misty because time was moving. You try to hold this in your hands, dull idea of what the world might look like, triangular ledge or platform whose pier does not fade into perspective, but reaches a body of water beyond, always fuliginous, from which grows an island or a promontory. You have this lens and a fuzzy idea of what might be realized, recognized, a two-dimensional object someone might carry to bed by candlelight, stare at its borders and recesses. A painted copy or an evil alchemy, darkness and light so easily exchanged. Who would embrace this magic, knowing it reveals all that is blurry? Hazy dimness at the center of sunlight, a depth that can only be speculated. This is what you saw, and it isn't behind black painted walls. Almost 2 centuries later, we focus on your vision encased in glass, brief reveal between electric blinks, pale illumination. An image's trace touched your cornea, imprinting there future's faint shadow. Yay for Catherine. All right, and now I'll read some of my stuff. Y'all may be unfortunate guinea pigs. I've been working with this ekphrastic piece for a while, and I don't know what to do with it. And so, yeah, you're going to hear some pieces of it as I try to figure out what I'm doing with it. I'm working with a book of found images, and so these are 2 pieces from that book. Number 5, a man dives into an inner tube. Oh, I should say in this piece I'm working with trying to retell the same scene from 3 different points of view, but they're the same point of view. A man dives into an inner tube. He pulls her against him. She leans into water, watches clouds pass across the moon. Wrapping her ankles around his back, he cups her head so she can float without sinking. Her hair drifts with the current. When he speaks, she hears only the curve of water. You want to remain like this forever, the small of your back against his forearms, but you understand the consequences of a body left too long in water, fear the wrinkling of flesh, the bloating. I want to ask him to stay. Instead, we dry ourselves in silence, walk parallel to the shore. And then here's the next one. Oh, wait, no, don't pause. 10, girl, I'm not going to pause. Girl in a white dress in the act of falling. This one's really appropriate because I fell today on my way into campus. So there's an irony to this opening line. In her mind, she falls gracefully. Her body collapses in a delicate swoon, legs folding gently beneath her. She exhales softly as she floats to the ground. In actuality, she trips over small objects, a twig on the sidewalk, a bit of fringe on the edge of a rug, crashes into walls, cabinets, desks, trees, shopping carts, and parked cars. While riding in the car, you look out the window, stare at the expanse of road stretching before you. You have to lock the car door to prevent yourself from launching your body across the asphalt. I wonder if it would be reminiscent of a rug burn. Okay, so and then I'm going to read a couple, and I'm not going to pause. I'm going to read a couple of pieces from my book, which is a hybrid, so it's a mixed genre book. His voice seems to occupy the length of her arm below the elbow. She cannot bend along predetermined hinges, ball and socket joints rendered useless. But then there is the folding of knees, legs in a pile, the shape of occupying. He tells her that the momentum of a swing is kinetic, but she knows nothing of motion. Walking is perpetual. Occasionally, she attempts to fix movement. What does it mean to be a unit of sound? This is what she meant to ask that day while leaning against a shopping cart, but instead became distracted by the curvature of broccoli, the echoing of a double consonant within her mouth. He only eats crunchy vegetables, always discards tomatoes, leaves them in a mushy mound on his plate. She drinks through straws, cannot abide liquid against teeth. She once toyed with the idea of scraping the taste buds from her tongue, even went so far as to map the organ, if only to discover the exact nature of epithelium. He is incapable of understanding the importance of non-vascular tissue, knows only the sensation of legs crossing and uncrossing, of action undone as she enters a room. When she speaks of multiplicities, she discovers she lacks the simplest of terms, a flashlight pressed against her rib cage, the complete history of vessels. Her skin rebels, resists all temptation, refuses all attempts at transparency. Theirs is a relationship of light and electrical impulse. He tells her that all bodies are designed for folding, so he is able to carry her in sections and lay her pieces on the couch. Only later, after she has difficulty climbing the stairs to the attic, will they discover that he has somehow forgotten to include a section of her lung, which he keeps in his pocket and squeezes while driving. And then I'm going to end, and it's kind of going to like where you ended, Vocab. I found this poem. My son's 17, and I was pregnant with him in grad school, and sometimes I look at him and I think, like, you used to fit inside of me, and like I can't reconcile that. And I found this poem that I wrote probably when he was like 1, and I didn't even remember it existed. When I first see you, you are only sound. I hang the image on the fridge. You, the small white dot in the lower corner of that black oblong blob. On week 8, day 59, your arms are as long as an exclamation point. I fear slipping, jostling, waking you. I picture the formation of lungs, worry my body cannot hold you for long enough, that you may accidentally slip out. I watch you extend my skin, press my hands against a heel or elbow. This is how you greet me. One Monday you arrive, but even now I feel the echo of you stretching amongst organs and bone. In front of the mirror, you reach out, touch glass. Later, I am surprised by forgotten reminders of you, 2 streaky handprints, fingers, and palm. Thank you.
This is our student poets, and our first poet is named Thomas Evans.
Hello, everyone. I have 3 little poems. They're pretty short. I just write little short poems, so they shouldn't take too long. You don't have to, listen to me for too long.
We're excited.
This first one, this one's a little bit lighter. My other ones are a bit sad. This one's called Calico. Cat in the alley, walking down slow, strolling softly through the winter snow. Friend in the shadows, keeping toe to toe, prancing back to and fro. One on one, side by side, one with form and one with mind. The ethereal meets the visceral, the mental meets metal. The stone meets the wind, Calico and her friend, little shadow and his pal, walk slow, toe to toe, to and fro through the winter snow. I'm a lot more nervous than I thought I'd be. This next one is called Pond of Pebbles. Rock in the ocean, stone in the sea, little black pebble floating down eternally. It's smooth and round and jaded and rough, bright and dark and brittle and tough. It sinks and sinks, going nowhere but down. Little rock, tiny stone, poor puny pebble. I'm sorry you have to live like this, doing nothing but sink. The bottom keeps getting farther, the surface keeps getting darker. It'll only be a little longer. I think this last one's the longest one, still not that long. It's called Foggy Road. A foggy road with no way home. The end looks dark, that's all you know. The mist hugs tight on the skin, shriveling it up into goosebumps. The chill bites the nose, the eyes wander, and the ears ring. But there's only one way. 1 foot forward, then the next one after. Keep up the pace until it starts getting faster. Run if you can, walk if you must, fill the road with sadness or laughter. You'll get out soon, you know what it looks like, the image of the end sketched in your head. No one knows the way to it, but that's where we're all going, all alone together, lost in the foggy road. Thank you very much.
Up next, our next student presenter and poet is Clarence C.J. Spears.
Hi everyone. This poem is called What's on Your Mind, Sunshine. And I wrote this poem when I was sitting outside, soaking up the sun rays and stuff like that. And, well, here it is. What's on your mind, sunshine? Will you flood your ray of light in me? Will you tell me the secrets of the universe? If I'm cold, will you keep me warm in these trying times? Oh, sunshine of mine, I hold you dearest in my heart. Sometimes I feel unworthy in your presence of light, but I still yearn for that spot you shine on the old wooden floor. And when I'm outside contemplating life, sitting in a vast field of wild daisies, I picture you right next to me. I can trace the outline of your bright body of white light, your face indescribable. I'm sure you're beautiful and you'll kiss me goodbye. And as you fade away, I see nothing but a shadow where you laid. What's on your mind, dearest sunshine? Will you shine when it's the gloomiest of days? Or have you gone and left me for the moon? Sunshine, why do you hate me? You go on to give me blisters, but I still live on to see you, even if it's all too formidable. I want to consume your ball of light and show you that I am worthy of your presence, that I can take on the heat and even the darkest of moments. Oh, sunshine of mine, you are my morning and evening. I loved you, but now it's gone dark, and I'll put myself to bed, turn and stare at the moon, because I know the moon will tell me the secrets of the universe. And that's it. I have another poem. It's 3 other ones. They're a collection of poems from something that I'm trying to get published. It's called I Am My Mother's Sane Child. And the first poem is The Baby Blue Bedroom. I sat in my prison, baby blue walls, things organized and neat. I was content with what I had. The clock above the bed ticked. I was on the cold bare floor playing with my 2 favorite toys. The other child came in to bother me, scream and whine, until the man came to shut me up, and hit me till I was screaming and crying. It was too late, mother. He has gotten me, and I'm stuck in this prison without my favorite toys that brought me joy. The baby blue bedroom was my prison. So much happened, so little room. And the next poem is called I Pray to God and Hope You Die. I got on my knees before I went to bed and prayed to some man named God. I told him that I wanted that man to die, to live in a life in hell and suffering, like he gave us. Please, God. I prayed and wished that he was dead, to stop hugging me, to stop kissing me, or hitting mother, and blaming us. And I pray to God that he dies one day, a death so tragic that even the devil himself would have a hard time watching. And I have one more poem. Let me find it. Okay. The Street with Lake Names. This neighborhood was my last bit of suburbia life. Every street had a lake name of some sort. Won't say for privacy reasons, of course. We knew at least one person here and there, but I'm not going to miss it as a part of me is gone. And he took it away from me as it was built into anger, an anger that's going to end up hurting me. The street with lake names will always haunt me. That's it.
Our last student poet is Christine Ramos.
Hello, I'm Christine Ramos, and for those of you that don't know me, I'm a new student here at NLC, and I'm here to major in anthropology. And I also created a new club here called Poetry Club, and for those of you that are interested, you can talk to me when this event ends. So my poem, I wrote it for one of my friends, and basically the prompt was to write something nice about him, and basically I saw him as a king. All right, so here's how it goes. When I drove to the east side for the first time, I didn't think about meeting new people. I only thought about the prime number of priorities that are placed on a steep hill. I'm a great person at first glance, but why do people want to think that? I have instinct to hide the aggression and a version of me being a brat. But honestly, if people knew at the beginning that they wanted to meet me, they would wish they never stayed grinning the whole time because I am standoffish. I came from the battlefield where I lost interest in things that make me happy. I drove to the east side where pretty green things are unconcealed and where people have their tea and pizza parties. I kept my guard up most of the time on the battlefield, but now it's costing more than dimes to bring it down while sitting on the green field. Since there are all kinds of people here, including you, I feel like I can fully be myself, even though I would let the wind blow away the parts of me that you would fear. But I feel like I can grow something here, something I tried to repair at home. I want to spend at least 2 years to make this new place my new home. because the battlefield was where people would just walk up close to me and then they would disappear. But the east side is where I greet other people and then I try to disappear. I do not mean to ignore everybody, including you. I just need to pause and think. But I always think of everybody, including you, while I still have thoughts that I shouldn't overthink. The battlefield was also where I made a bet on my healing and my happiness, but then I lost it to the voices in my head. And I got nothing in return besides anger and nastiness. When I come to the east side, I walk by the green fields where there are flower beds. I greet you with happy but tired eyes, and we carry on playing with some needles and thread. We play a game in the green field, specifically one of the flower beds. We don't have to treat the game like a battlefield. The holes in the ground don't have to catch my head. Instead, we pick up the needles and poke the flowers to see which flowers will fall into the pits. The game ended because I accidentally broke the needle and made the dark flower fall into the pit. But we kept playing because we have nothing to lose. There's no need for bluffing. There's no need to give each other a bruise. But honestly, I just wanted you to win because I get tired of carving my scores into my skin and having to clean up the blood and gore. I'd rather give you all the flower crowns because I wouldn't be able to bear all that pride and power. The flower boys and girls don't need to see me wear white gowns and frowns to where they'll get hung in a tower. But I'm glad to see that you like to stay and run around in the garden even though you've been crowned and I'm standing in the pit waiting to get a pardon. I punished myself because I feel like I let almost all the flowers die around me, and when I walked by the flower boys and girls, I became a ghost, and it was too much of a crime to allow them to be good to me. I hid myself by the lake, trying to figure out how deep it goes, so I could ask the lake to sink in my headaches and freeze all of me, including my elbows. Even though you have the power to send your army to save me, I honestly don't want saving. I just want to be found, including the things that I've been craving. You're the king of the green field. I would like to ask you if you would like to become my brother, and it's completely up to you if you want to go back to the golden field, because I think I'd rather stay a flower child than become a prince while being a bother. I don't mean to be desperate because honestly, I have siblings at home, but they don't call for me because I wrote in my letters with dishonesty, not letting them know that there's something wrong with me. One of them even has a hard time responding because he's far away in a dungeon, and another needs some bonding and some help to let the sun in. But if you don't want to stay in the green field, I will be okay with it. I'd rather you be happy in the golden field where you won't have to worry about blue flowers falling into a pit. I'll be happy because I know you will be staying in higher power, and you'll probably be thinking about when we all play in the flower beds. But if you wanted to, we can meet by the lake during the golden hour, which is most likely where my last words will be said. You'll forever be a king, and I could ever just be the worst part of me. When you hear the bells in the tower ding, that's how you'll know that the pit is where lies all of me. Thank you.
Perfect timing. That concludes our student speaking and our program. I want to thank everyone for coming out. I want to